A British court said the Palestine Action terror ban was unlawful. But that does not mean the court said Palestine Action did nothing wrong. And it does not mean the ban disappeared overnight. That is where the confusion begins. By the time the ruling came down, Palestine Action had already been added to the official list of organisations banned under British terrorism law. That list is not symbolic. Once a group is proscribed, membership can become a criminal offence. Inviting support or recklessly encouraging support can become a criminal offence. Displaying signs, clothing, or symbols in support can become a criminal offence. So this case was never just about whether people agree with Palestine Action or oppose it. It was about whether the British government had used the right level of power. Palestine Action was founded in 2020 with one stated focus: direct action against companies and institutions connected to the supply of military equipment to Israel, especially Elbit Systems UK. The British government's case was that this had moved beyond ordinary protest. It said Palestine Action had carried out a nationwide campaign of property damage. It said the targets included defence firms, public institutions, universities, financial companies, and government buildings. It argued that the group's methods had become more serious, more organised, and more disruptive. Then, in June 2025, the issue escalated. After the RAF Brize Norton incident, where aircraft were reportedly sprayed with red paint, the Home Secretary announced plans to proscribe Palestine Action. The order was approved through Westminster and came into force in July 2025. From that moment, the issue changed. This was no longer only about criminal damage. It was about what happens when British terrorism law is used against a direct action protest group. And that is where the public debate often gets messy. In everyday language, many people hear the word terrorism and think only of bombings, shootings, or mass casualty attacks. But British terrorism law is wider than that. Serious damage to property can fall within the legal definition of terrorism if it is done to advance a political, religious, racial, or ideological cause, and is designed to influence government or intimidate the public. That legal width is why this case matters. The High Court was not asked a simple moral question like, is Palestine Action good or bad? And it did not give the group a clean bill of health. The challenge was brought by Huda Amori, one of Palestine Action's co-founders. In February 2026, the Divisional Court ruled that the Home Secretary's decision was unlawful, but the court was careful. The court accepted that the Home Secretary's conclusion that Palestine Action was concerned in terrorism under the Act was not the issue before it at the substantive hearing. That point is crucial. The court was not saying Palestine Action was just peaceful civil disobedience. In fact, it rejected that framing. It said human rights law does not protect violent or non-peaceful protest. It said Palestine Action promoted its political cause through criminality and the encouragement of criminality. So what did the court actually say? It said the next question still mattered. Even where the Home Secretary believes an organisation is concerned in terrorism, proscription is still a power, not a duty. The Home Secretary's own policy required a further judgment. Was proscription proportionate? The policy required a real assessment of the nature and scale of the activity, the specific threat to the UK, and whether ordinary criminal law was already enough. This is where the court found the problem. The Home Secretary had treated proscription partly as useful because it would unlock wider offences and wider powers against people connected to Palestine Action or supportive of it. In plain English, a successful proscription gives the British state a larger enforcement zone. It creates more offences. It gives UK police and prosecutors more routes to act. And it makes support for the organisation itself part of the legal battlefield. That is the point of proscription. But the court said the Home Secretary's policy was supposed to limit that power, not treat the extra power as a reason in itself to use it. Then the court turned to rights. The judges accepted that Palestine Action's non-peaceful activity was not protected. But the ban did not only hit the people carrying out criminal damage, it also reached lawful expression and lawful assembly. It affected people who might want to discuss the group, defend the group, criticise the ban, join a demonstration, hold a placard, or speak publicly about the issue without damaging property themselves. That created what the court called a very significant interference with freedom of expression and freedom of assembly. The court did not ignore public safety. It gave weight to the Home Secretary's role in protecting the public. It gave weight to the fact that some Palestine Action activity fell within the legal definition of terrorism. But overall, it found the ban disproportionate. The court said a very small number of Palestine Action's activities amounted to terrorism under the Act. It said ordinary criminal law remained available for criminal damage and other offences. And it said the nature, scale, and persistence of the activity had not yet reached the level needed to justify proscription. So the court's message was not, Palestine Action did nothing wrong. It was, the British government used the wrong level of power. That distinction is the whole story. The High Court then quashed the decision and the 2025 order. But that quashing was stayed while the government appealed, so the ban did not disappear overnight. At the time this script is being prepared, the Court of Appeal has heard the government's challenge, but judgment has not yet been handed down. That means the legal position may still change. But even before the final appeal result, the case has already exposed a deeper question. If a group commits politically motivated criminal damage, should the British state answer mainly through ordinary criminal law? Or should it use terrorism law, with all the extra consequences that come with it? That answer matters, because terrorism law does more than punish past acts. It changes what can be joined, what can be displayed, what can be supported, what can be said in public, and what ordinary people may fear saying at all.